Welcome to this predicted paper from onmaths. This paper represents the best guess for the upcoming exams. Please use this paper in addition to your other revision. You can complete a unique version of this paper by going to our onmaths site. Onmaths is full of free content to help you prepare for your exams, such as topic-based papers, demon questions, and mini mocks. If you like what we do, please consider subscribing. So the only way of answering this question is to work out what these are as ordinary numbers. And so 7 times 10 to the power of 7 would be 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And 9 times 10 to the power of 4 would be 90,000. So that would be 9, 0, 0, 0, 0. And so we're just subtracting them like that. And so we'll get 6, 9, 9, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0. And obviously if this is on the calculator paper, just type it into your calculator. There are no tricks here. You can't do anything with the 7 and the 9. You're not subtracting powers or anything. You're just literally typing in what it says. And there's a button on the calculator like that you will need to use. So if you don't know what that is, ask your teacher or ask someone to help you out with that. So we're going to start by understanding that all lines form or can form an equation y equals mx plus c, with m being the gradient and c being the y-intercept. It says here the gradient is -2, so we've already got a bit of a head start with this, but we don't know what the y-intercept is. So we're going to use this first set of coordinates to work out what the y-intercept is. So y is -31. And x is 15. And we're going to use this to solve and find out what c is. So first thing I'm going to do is, well, just tidy this up. 2 times 15 is 30, so -30 plus c. And I'm just going to add 30 to both sides to get c on its own. So that would be -1 equals c. So c is -1. So we now know that the equation is y equals -2x minus 1. And we're told that the y is -37. And we're looking for the x value, which they've called w. So let's get our solving lines in. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is add 1 to both sides. And so it would be -36 equals -2x. I'm going to now times, or divide everything by -2. And a negative divided by a negative is positive. 36 divided by 2 is 18. And then obviously that gets rid of the coefficient of the x, so it's just x. So x equals 18. So the x value is 18 and the x value is the w value. So w is 18. So this question says that Adrian, Ben and Charlie have some sweets and the ratio of Adrian to Ben to Charlie is 9 to 6 to 13. But it also says that Charlie got 56 more sweets than Adrian. So there's 56 more sweets. Well, looking at the actual parts of the ratio, there are 4 more parts. So plus 4 parts, which represent plus 56 sweets. So the 4 extra parts are worth 56 sweets. So 4 parts are worth 56 sweets. So 1 part would be 56 divided by 4, which is 14 sweets. So all we need to do now is work out how many parts there are. Well, there are 9 plus 6 plus 13 parts, which is 28. And each part is worth 14 sweets. So the total number of sweets will be 28 times 14. So 28 times 14 is 392. So the first thing we're going to do is work out the area of the trapezium. And the formula for that is half brackets a plus b times h. Now a and b have to be the parallel sides. So here we've got the two parallel sides here. Just pick a different colour. Here and here. So that is a and b. And then the h is the perpendicular distance between them. So perpendicular means it hits it at right angles. So that's what we've got here. So the area would be half times a, which is 28, plus b, which is 14, times the height, which is 14. And so that would be 294. Next we'll do the circle. Now it doesn't look like we've got anything for the circle, but actually the height here is actually the height of the circle as well. So the height of the circle is the same as the diameter. So the diameter of the circle is 14, therefore the radius would be half of that, which is 7, and the area of the circle is pi times the radius squared. So it would be pi times 7 squared, which will be 153.938 blah blah blah. Now I'll keep that in my calculator, because next thing we'll do is the shaded area part. And it says we want to work out the area of the shaded region. So the area will be the total area, which will be the trapezium, take away the area that we don't want, which is this bit here, which will be the circle. So the trapezium's 294, the circle's 153.93 blah blah blah. And when you do that, you get 140.061, blah, blah, blah. It says it wants it to 2 decimal places, so it would be 140.06. So the first thing we need to do is work out the mean for the data in the table. So to start off doing that, we're going to work out the midpoint of each group. So we've got 80 to 85, and to find the midpoint, you add the 80 and the 85 together, then you divide by 2. So this will be 82.5, then 87.5, then 92.5, then 97.5, and then finally 100 plus 105 divided by 2 is 102.5. Next we need to find the FT, which is just the frequency times the duration of calls. Now, in this first group, we're not timesing it by 80 to 85 or anything like that. We're timesing it by the midpoint. So our midpoint effectively becomes the t. So we're going to do 15 times that, which will be 1237.5. And we're just going to keep going and multiplying each of these together. And then finally 2050. Right, next we need to add up the frequencies and add up the FTs. So we're going to have the sum of the frequencies. So I'm just adding all this column up, and that will be 80. And we have sum of the FT. And so we're going to just add this column up here. And so that would be 7,450. So what this column represents is all the numbers added up together. This column represents how many numbers we have. So to find the mean, it's all of the numbers added together, which will be 7,450, over the amount of numbers we have, which is 80. So when you do that, we get 93.125. Now this question is about the improvement that we've made, or that the manager has made, the call centre's made. So we're looking at subtracting the 93.125 away from the last week, which was 105. So we're looking for improvement. And we're going to do 105 take away the 93.125. And that's going to be 11.875. Now it does ask for 2 decimal places, so that will be 11.88. So I'm just going to write this out a little bit bigger, just so we've got a bit more room to play with. And I'm going to start by putting my tramlines in. Anytime it says solve, I always put my tramlines in. We can start by either multiplying out the bracket, or we can be clever and just divide by 5s both sides. And that'll leave 6x minus 39. And 15 divided by 5 is 3. Then I'm going to add the 39 to both sides. And so we've got 6x is greater than or equal to 39 plus 3, which would be 42. And then we're going to divide by 6 both sides. And we've got x is greater than or equal to 7. To rearrange this, I'm just going to write out the equation again. And I'm going to put my lines in. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is try and make the x positive, because we're looking to make x the subject of the formula, which means we need it to be x equals. So what I'm going to do is just add x both sides. So we've got x plus m equals 10. Then we want to get rid of anything on the left hand side that's not this x. So we want to get rid of this plus m. So we're going to do that by subtracting m both sides. So we've got x equals 10 minus m. So our answer is 10 minus m. X equals 10 minus m. So here we can just draw in 2 extra lines, and we can see that it makes a right angled triangle. And we're asked to find the length of the line segment AB. So we're asked to find what this length here is going to be. And we know what the other lengths are. We know that this is 2 and this is 3. So we're going to be using Pythagoras. In Pythagoras, we start by labelling the sides A, B, and C must be the one that's opposite the right angle. And so we know Pythagoras is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. A is 2, b is 3, and 2 squared plus 3 squared is going to be 13. And then we're just going to solve that by square rooting both sides. So the square root of 13 is 3.605 blah blah blah. And it asks it to 2 decimal places, so it's going to be 3.61. The important thing when choosing a sample is that everyone has an equal chance of being picked. So if you look at method 1, picking the first 30 students who enter the school is going to have a bias, because there might be a difference in the type of person who arrives early to school to the type of person who might arrive later. If we select a class in the school, then they're generally all going to be the same age. So if it's a year 7 class or a year 11 class, they're all going to be the same age. It might seem that it's fair that picking the first 30 students alphabetically, so A to F or whatever, again, that's not fair, because the people at the end of the register don't have an equal chance of being picked. So you need to make sure everyone in your population has an equal chance of being picked. So picking 30 students out of a hat containing all the students' names in is definitely the fairest way of picking a sample from this list. So for this question, what we need to do is factorise 4t plus 6. Now factorise means put it into brackets. So if I try, what I can do is I can actually put a 1 on the outside here. So 1 times 4t plus 6 is 4t plus 6, but the question clearly states that it is higher than 1. So we need to find another number that's higher than 1 to factorise this with. So if we look at 4t and 6, well, they're both in the 2 times table. So I can put a 2 on the outside here. 2 times 2t is 4t, and 2 times 3 is 6. So what we can do is we can just check that out with smiles and rainbows. Put all my times down there to remind me to times it. So 2 times 2t is 4t, 2 times 3 is 6. So that works because that is the same as this in the question. So we know that 2 times 2t plus 3 works. In fact, it's the only one that works with it being an integer. So we therefore know that the known side, because it says it's a known number, is 2, and the other side will be 2t plus 3. And then when you multiply them together, you get the area of 4t plus 6. So our answer, because it says the length is the known number, so that's the length, then we're finding the width, which is this one here. So it's 2t plus 3. The first thing to notice is that the tree must be closer to CD than AB. So if we draw a line across the middle, it can't be in the top bit because that would be closer to line AB. The second piece of information that is given to us is it must be at least 11 meters away from point C. So we get our compass out and measure 11 centimeters, or whatever the scale we're using in this diagram is, and we draw a quarter circle from C. And it says shade the region that it can be planted. So this is the region that represents closer to line CD than AB, but also not within 11 meters of point C. A frequency polygon is like a line graph. In fact, it's a type of line graph, but it is when you have the data in a group. So we've got the data here as a group of 0 to 80. So there are 11 at 0 to 80, and then 18 at 80 to 160, and 6 at 160 to 240. Now, where am I going to plot this? It will involve putting a cross somewhere on this graph, and it would seem unfair if I put it all at 0, and it would also seem unfair if I put it all at 80. So what we do is we find the midpoint, the halfway point between 0 and 80, which is obviously 40, and we plot our coordinate there. So it seems to be going up in 2s, so it would be there. So that's at 40, 11, the coordinate. Our next one, we plot at the midpoint again, which would be 120, and it's just halfway between 80 and 160, and it's 18 high, so it would be up here. And then the final one is at 200, and it will be 6 high, so 200 is halfway, and we're looking at 6 high, so it will be here. Then when you're done, you need to join them up with straight lines. So I'm just going to get my ruler, join them up, perfectly straight lines, and there we are. So we're going to first of all work out where 9 is on the y-axis. Well, we've got 8 here and 10 here, so 9 will be halfway in between. And what we're going to do now is just draw a line across at 9, and then wait until it hits the line, and then we're going to draw a line down, and you can see here that x is 1. So our answer is that x equals 1. The formula for an exterior angle for a regular polygon is 360 divided by the amount of sides. Now here we're given the fact that the exterior angle is 30, and we're looking for n, so we just need to rearrange the equation. We can times both sides by n. And then divide both sides by 30. And so we've got n equals 360 divided by 30. And when you do 360 divided by 30, we get the answer of 12. So it's a 12-sided shape. So let's write these numbers out. And the first thing to do is work out what the numbers are going up by. So they're going up by -3, because they're minusing 3 each time. So we know that the number before the n is going to be -3. So whatever they go up in is the number before the n. Then what we do is we go backwards to find the 0th term. So actually going backwards, we would add 3, and we would find it to be 20. So whatever numbers our 0th term, because 17 is our first term, is going to be what we add to the minus 3n. So it's going to be add 20. So our answer is minus 3n plus 20. So there's a few different ways of working out this question, but they all involve working out the area of the cross-section. And the cross-section is the part here. So we want to work out the area of this. And what we can do, and this is one of the methods, is we can work out the area of the full rectangle, which will be 28 by 19. And we'll call this A. And then we can take away the little part that is not there. So the missing part, which is going to be 14 across. We've got to do a bit of maths here to work out how high it is. So we've got 28 in total, 21 we don't want, so that would be 7 high. We're going to call this B. So work out the area of A. It's going to be 28 times 19, which is 532. Work out the area of B, which is going to be 98. And then to work out the area of the cross-section, we're going to do the big rectangle, take away the small one, take away the bit we have missing, and that will leave 434. Now the volume of any prism is area of cross-section, so cross-section area times the length. So our area of cross-section is 434. Our length is basically how 3D the shape is, so it's going to be 10. And so that would be 4,340. So our answer is 4,340 centimetres cubed. Whenever you have north lines, they will always be parallel. So what we have here is we have a straight line going through two parallel lines, which are our two north lines. And therefore this angle here is going to equal this angle here. And the reason for that is that the two angles are alternate, they're Z angles. So we can say that that is 135, and I always like to try and show the examiner the reasons. So that's because it's alternate angles. And we know also that angles on a point add up to 360. So this red angle represents the bearing of A from B. And so to find this angle out, what we're going to do is just 360 take away 135. And the reason for that is angles on a point equal 360 degrees. And when we work that out, we get the answer of 225. So our bearing is 225 degrees. So we're given a right angle triangle here, and we're asked to find length AC, which is this length here, and we're given two other lengths. So we're going to be using Pythagoras. Pythagoras involves us labelling the sides A, B and C, with C being the one opposite the right angle. And we know Pythagoras is A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Both A and B here are 4.9, so it'd be 4.9 squared plus 4.9 squared equals C squared. So we're going to add the 4.9 squareds together, and that will give us 48.020 blah blah blah. And here we're going to do a bit of solving. So we're going to square root both sides to find out what C is. So square root of 48.020 blah 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 is 6.929 blah blah blah. Rounded to two decimal places, this will be 6.93. So we're asked to find angle BCE, and that is going to be this one here, because you start at B, go to C, and then go to E, and it's the angle you make. And I might just choose a different colour because we've already got red on here. So we're looking for this angle here. Now, my advice for these kind of questions is always just try and work your way around the shape with angles you know. So, for instance, I'm going to start with this angle here, and we're going to call this angle ADC. And we know that that must be 79 degrees, and always write down the reason, and we know it is because that is an isosceles triangle. So if you look, we've got an isosceles here, this one, and this one. And the bottom two angles, and I use the word bottom because I always imagine an isosceles as being this way up. The bottom two angles in an isosceles are always equal, so that must be 79. Now we've got two of the three angles in the triangle, and the last one is going to be angle DCA. And to work out what this angle is, we're going to take it away from 180. So we're going to do 180, take away the 279s we've just worked out. And the reason for that is angles in a triangle equal 180 degrees. Okay, so when we do that, we do 180, take away the 158, and we're left with 22 degrees. So we know that this is going to be 22 degrees. And now we can actually work out angle BCE because it's going to equal angle DCA. And the reason for that is they are vertically opposite angles. So that's just going to equal 22 degrees. Now, it is really common for these types of questions for you to get maybe 1 or even 2 marks for the answer, but 1 or 2 marks normally for the reasons and for the explanations. In fact, I've seen quite a few exam questions where you get 2 marks for the reasons and only 1 mark for the answer. The word truncated means that we just literally cut off the next number along. So if we imagine this is our number, we just cut it off. So it's not the same as rounding. We just don't change this digit at all. We just cut off the remaining digits. So the smallest number it could be before it was cut off is 79.500000. The largest number it could have been, well, it could have been 79.5999, etc. So that's the largest it could have been. So to do our error interval, well, the smallest it could have been is 79.5, and it could have been 79.5, and we'll call this x. But we're looking at any number that is less than 79.6. So any number that's less than 79.6. If it was 79.6, then when we cut it off, it would show as 79.6. Something we know about rectangles is opposite sides are equal. So these two will be equal. And these two will be equal. And you notice now that we've got simultaneous equations. So what I'm going to do is get the coefficient of the y the same. And I'm going to do that by multiplying everything in the second equation by 3. So we get 6x plus 9y equals 123. And I'm just going to write in the first equation underneath, because with simultaneous equations we work downwards. Now looking at the signs, they are the same, and the s in same is the s in subtract. So we're going to subtract going downwards. We're just going to subtract going downwards. So 6x take away 3x is 3x. 9y take away 9y is nothing, which is good. That's what we need. And then 123 take away 93 is 30. We're going to get our solving lines in, and we're just going to divide by 3 both sides. So we've got x equals 10. So we know what x is, but we need to find out what y is. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick one of the equations. I can pick the 2x plus 3y equals 41. and just substitute the value of x in. So 2 times, instead of x, it's times 10, plus 3y equals 41. So it would be 20 plus 3y equals 41. Get my solving lines in. And we're going to take away 20 both sides. So we've got 3y equals 21. And then we're going to divide by 3 both sides if I don't run out of room. So y equals 7. So we've got x equals 10, y equals 7. Now I could check that with the first equation as well. So 3 times 10 is 30, 9 times 7 is 63, 30 plus 63 is 93. So we know we've got it right. When it's said that y is inversely proportional to x, it means that y changes as 1 over x changes. And to write this in an equation, all we do is we just write y equals k over x. Now k is something we need to find. So what we need to do is find out what a value of y and a value of x are somewhere on the graph that would be formed from this, and we've got that in this question. So we know that when y is 7, then x is going to be 7.9. And what I need to do now is just draw my lines down. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just times both sides by 7.9. And so we have k equals, and it'd be 7 times 7.9, which is 55.3. So we know that k is 55.3. So I'm just going to rewrite this equation here, or this formula here. But instead of k, I know that it's going to be 55.3. So our answer is y equals 55.3 over x. It's sometimes easier in these questions to view these triangles as 2 separate triangles rather than one triangle. So we're kind of just going to split this triangle off and just move it to the side so we can see what's going on. I'm going to do the same with the smaller triangle and kind of move that to the side. So we can see we've got 2 triangles here. We've got a big triangle and small triangle. And we can label the sides of them as 18. Now this long length would be 20 plus x, 20 centimeters plus x. Then we've got 6 here and we've got x here. Now the 2 triangles are similar because the sides here we assume are, well, we know they are parallel because they are right angles, and they share an angle here, which we can just label as A, and so they are definitely similar, which means that one is an enlargement of the other. So we need the scale factor first. Now if you look at the 6 and the 18, they are what we call corresponding sides. So we need to work out the scale factor by finding out what I multiply the 6 by to get to the 18. Well, that's obviously going to be 3. So we now know that we can times the x by 3 to get to the 20 plus x. So we can write that down. 3x, I'm timesing the x by 3, and that will give me 20 plus x. And so I can solve this now. Subtract x both sides. Always subtract the smaller amount, so 2x equals 20. And then divide both sides by 2. And so we've got x equals 10. So we know that x equals 10, it says find the length x, and so that will be 10. So this question will probably need a Venn diagram just to make it a bit easier. So I'm going to draw a Venn diagram. You don't need to. If you can work out how to do this question without, you can do, but I think this is a really tricky question to do without a Venn diagram. So it says that they picked 2 activities. It was either painting, which I'll put as a P, and sport, which I'll put as an S. So let's start filling in the information it gives us. So 11 picked painting and sport, so that will go in the middle because that is painting and sport, and 11 didn't pick painting or sport, so they can sit on the outside. Now here's the problem. It says twice as many people picked sport than painting as one of their activities. So it's saying that the total number in, and let's just show it, the total number in the sports circle is twice as big as the total number in the painting circle. Now, what we can do is we can say, okay, so if the painting we label as X, then the sport will be 2X. But if you look, we've already got a number already in the sport, that 11 there. So in algebra, this will be 2X, take away the 11 that we already know about. And the painting is the same. We know the whole thing is X. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take away the bit we know there, which is the 11, and it will be X minus 11. Now we know that there are 66 students in total. So what we can do now is add up all of the parts of the Venn diagram and get it equal to 66. So X minus 11 plus 11 plus 2X minus 11 plus 11, and all of that will equal 66. This is going to be some solving, so we're just going to put our lines in. Now here we've got X plus 2X, which is 3X. And if I put my tool right, there we are. And we've got minus 11 plus 11, minus 11 plus 11. Well, those just cancel out. So we're left with just the 3X equals, and then 66. I'm going to divide that 3 both sides. So we've got X equals 22. So if we go back to our Venn diagram now, we can fill in the blanks. So instead of X minus 11 there, we've got 22 take away 11, which is just 11. Instead of 2X minus 11 there, we've got 22 times 2, which is 44, take away 11, which will be 33. So it says, find the amount that picked sport and not painting, which is this 33 here. The surface area of a sphere is found with the formula 4 pi r squared, with r being the radius of the sphere. So we're going to do 4 times pi times the 20, and that gives us 5026.548 blah blah blah. And when we round that to 2 decimal places, we get 5026.55 centimeters squared. There are a few different ways you could answer this question. I'm going to do it with a tree diagram, but you didn't need to draw a tree diagram to answer this question. So we've got our first tree, which is our first bus. And the choices are male and female. And we've got our second kind of branch, I suppose. And it's still male and female. And this is our second bus. So the property of male on a first bus is 9 over 15. And therefore the property of female is 1 minus 9 over 15, which would be 6 over 15. Male on the second bus is 7 over 15. And so female would be 8 over 15, because they need to add up to 1. And it's independent, so these will be the same. And the question is basically asking what is the probability that both will be female. So to have both female, we need to have gone down this line at the start and then this line again. Okay, so looking at the fractions along the way, it's 6 over 15 and 8 over 15. The word and in probability means times. So whenever you're finding the probability of getting to an outcome, so this outcome will be FF, because they're both female, you are multiplying the fractions that you go across. So it would be 6 over 15 times 8 over 15. So 6 times 8 is 48. And times the bottoms, 15 times 15 is 225. Now you can actually cancel that down. So what you can do is you can divide top and bottom by 4. And that will give you 16. Is it 4? No, you can times top them on by 3, and that would be 16 over 75. So either 48 over 225 or 16 over 75. So we've got to first of all realise that these triangles are similar, so we can work up what the scale factor is. We need two corresponding sides, which I'm just going to pick these top ones, and we're going to work out the scale factor from those. Now the scale factor is how to get from the smaller to the bigger. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 91 divided by 13, which is 7. So we know we times 7 to get from the small to the big. Now here we've got a problem because we're actually going from the big to the small. And when we go the opposite way around, so instead of times 7, we're going to divide by 7. So on our calculator we do 126 divided by 7, and we get the answer 18. We're going to start by drawing x equals 3.5 onto our graph. So x equals 3.5 will be a vertical line where x is always 3.5. And we're asked to find x is equal to or greater than 3.5. So where on this graph is greater than 3.5? Well, it's going to be on the right hand side of it, because all the coordinates here are more than 3.5. It's got to equal to and greater than. The equal to means that it will be a solid line rather than a dashed line. So when we find the mean of something, we add the elements together and we divide them by the amount of elements. So here we've got 3 elements. So what we're going to do is add these together and then divide by 3. Now the problem is that the denominators are not the same, so we can't add them yet. But they're all factors of 45. So we're going to times top and bottom of the first one by 9. So we end up with 9k over 45. Times top and bottom by 3, and so it would be 3 brackets k plus 1 over 45, and the last one is over 45, so we don't need to do anything for that. Then we can just add the numerators together, and I'm just going to expand the bracket here, so it's 3k plus 3 plus k plus 4, and then all of that over 45. And then we're going to do 9k plus 3k plus k, which is going to be 13k. And then 3 plus 4, which is just 7, over 45. So the sum of them is 13k plus 7 over 45. So to work out the mean, we need to divide it by 3. But instead of writing divide by 3, we know KFC, keep, flip, change. If you have a division, you keep the first fraction, you change the divide into a times, and you flip the second fraction. So a different and easier way of writing that is times 1/3. So here we just keep the numerator the same because we're timesing it by 1. And then the bottom we just times by the 3, which would be 135. So our answer is 13k plus 7 over 135. So to draw a box plot, we need 5 points. We need the lowest point, lower quartile, median, upper quartile, and highest point. Now we already have the lowest and highest points, so we can put those onto our box plot now. So the lowest point is at 0 and the highest point is at 30, as we can see on the cumulative frequency graph. So we need to now find out where the median is. Now the graph goes up to 20, the actual line goes up to 20, so the median we're going to find at 10. We're just going to draw a line across and down, and that looks like it is 17. So our median will be at 17, so we're just going to draw a line at 17. Get it just perfect, there we are. Okay, next thing we're going to look for the lower quartile. So if the median we drew a line across at 10, the lower quartile would do it at 5, which will be here. So that's at 12. So we're just going to draw a line up from 12. Fill in this box, and we can actually fill it in with the lowest point. And lastly, we need our upper quartile. And we do that by adding the 5 and the 10 together to make 15. So we're going to draw a line across from 15 and down. And that's 23. So line up from 23. Try and get this as nicely as I can. I need to move that line a little bit. Oops. There we go. And let's fill in the last bit, join it up with the highest point. And there's our box plot. So we're going to just quickly write out our sequence. So 9, 22, 41, 66 and 97. And we're going to find the differences of each of them. So that's going to be plus 13. Then we've got plus 19. So they're different already. We know that it's not a linear sequence. And that's going to be plus 31. So we now look at the difference of the differences. And so we've got plus 6 again, and plus 6 again. When you have a difference of differences, it's going to be a quadratic sequence. And we're interested in what the difference of differences is, because what we now do is get that 6 and we always halve it, and it gives us 3. Now that 3 is actually really important because that is the coefficient of the n squared. So we know our sequence will begin 3n squared. So we're going to do a table now to see what the rest of the sequence will be. And we're going to have our term number and our sequence. So term numbers will just be first, second, third, fourth and fifth. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The sequence is just 9, 22, 41, 66 and 97. Now we know that 3n squared is part of our sequence. So what we're doing now is just removing the 3n squared bit and see what we have left over. So we're going to do 3 times 1 squared, which will be 3, 3 times 2 squared, which will be 12, and then 3 times 3 squared, 27, 3 times 4 squared, 48, 3 times 5 squared, 75. And we're just going to remove that from our sequence. So we've got our sequence, and we're removing the 3n squared bit, because we know what that is. We've already answered that part. So 9 take away 3 is 6, 22 take away 12 is 10. So they're not the same with this. 14, 18, 22. Now what do you notice? Well, we notice that these ones here are going up in 4s. So we've got a linear sequence here. So they're going up in 4s. So we know that that will be plus 4n. And then we find the 0th term. So we go back. So 6 take away 4, which will be 2. So it's going to be 4n plus 2. So our total quadratic sequence will be 3n squared plus 4n plus 2. So the first thing we need to realise is that we can create a right angle triangle from within this cone. So if I draw a line from the top going downwards, a line to the right and a line up, and we can label the sides. So we've got 30 here, and we've got 10 at the bottom here, and we're looking for this angle here, which we're going to call y. And if I just highlight all of this and move it across, then we're obviously going to be using trigonometry to find out what y is. So first step with trigonometry is, well, find out where the right angle is, which is there. And the one opposite the right angle is the hypotenuse. The one opposite the marked angle is the opposite. And the one between the right angle and the marked angle is the adjacent. In this question, we're not using the hypotenuse because there's no letter or number next to it. And so I'm going to do my SOHCAHTOA, SOHCAHTOA. And we're not using the H, so we're going to cross out these two. We're using the TOA, and that stands for tan the angle, which in this case is y, equals the opposite, which is 10, over the adjacent, which is 30. And so tan, so we're going to inverse tan both sides, so we're going to have to solve this. Let's get my lines in. And we're going to inverse tan both sides. So that would just leave y on the left hand side, And then we need to find out what the inverse tan of a third is. And the inverse tan of a third is 18.434 blah blah blah. Now, what I did at the start was I moved the diagram away from the cone. Let's just move it back and we'll see the fact that y is exactly half of x, because we've done a line straight down the middle. So to find out what x is, all we need to do is double y. So x is going to be 2 times y. So that's going to be 2 times the 18.434 blah 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 blah. And so that is going to be 36.869, etc. And it says it wants it to correct 2 decimal places, so that's going to be 36.87 degrees. So to find the shaded part of this diagram, we need to first of all work out the volume of the smaller cone, which is at the top, then work out the volume of the larger cone, which is the whole cone shown, and then take them away from each other. So the radius for the smaller cone is 4 and the height is 5. And the radius for the larger cone is 20 and the height is the 20 plus the 5, so it would be 25. So I'm just going to label them A and B. And so why don't we work out the volume for B first? And the formula for the volume of a cone is a third pi r squared h, with h being the perpendicular height. So it's a third times pi times 20 squared times 25, which is going to be 10,471.975 blah blah blah. We're going to work out the volume for A, and this time it will be a third times pi times the radius now is 4, and the height is 5. So that will be 83.775 blah blah blah. So to work out the shaded bit, we're just going to do the volume for B, take away the volume for A. So it's going to be 10,471.975, take away 83.775, and all those I'm going to keep in the calculator to keep the accuracy, and that gives us 10,388.199 blah blah blah, and to 2 decimal places it's going to be 10,388.20. You can complete a unique version of this paper by going to our onmaths site. onmaths is full of free content to help you prepare for your exams, such as topic-based papers, demon questions and mini mocks. If you like what we do, please consider subscribing.